Hey, welcome to Politics NY with Skye, the Healthcare Power Leader Edition. I am joined by Alan Murray. He's the president of Empire BlueCross BlueShield, the largest health insurer in New York, and it's a pleasure to have you with us.
It's absolutely awesome and fantastic to be here with you, Skye.
Now, Alan, you are relatively young compared to other people who are in your position, who I've interviewed and who I know. So I'm wondering if you can share your career story with us of how you became the president of Empire BlueCross BlueShield, the largest health insurer in New York.
Yeah, I guess it's a fascinating story. It may be an American dream come true for me personally. As you can probably tell or will tell, Skye, I am not from Brooklyn. I was born in Glasgow. I grew up in London, and I've been over here about 20 years. A wonderful young lady was doing a semester of college in London, and I happened to be on leave from the British Merchant Marines, and I'm her souvenir. And so that's how I ended up in this country in 2002. And my mother-in-law's cousin's best friend, and I think I'm the only one in the world who can say this, was a medical director at Empire BlueCross BlueShield, and she realized that I needed a job interview. And I started as an entry-level position at Empire BlueCross BlueShield back in 2002. 5 years later, I was running the New York market from all of our provider contracting and negotiations. I spent a few years at United Healthcare. And then with Michael Dowling over at Northwell, which I'm sure most people know, I went across there and ended up starting and creating Care Connect, which was the first provider-owned health insurance company in the state that sold commercial insurance. Did that for a whole bunch of time. And then I got a phone call to see if I'd like to come back and be the president and CEO of that little company I joined so long ago. And here I am in front of you 3 years later, Skye.
Wow. Well, congratulations. It's certainly an exciting story. And it sounds like you learned a lot about the job sort of on the job.
I did, both good and bad, actually, which is probably a big part of what's formed my personal passion about this industry, especially in New York and this company and what we can do about it. But yeah, it was definitely not a lot of people, I think, go into health insurance and do the studying. It tends to be a place you find yourself in. And I obviously found myself in it and found a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really complicated industry that not a lot of people can understand or explain to one another. And I know that it was really highlighted during the pandemic, this disparity in healthcare. I mean, across the country, across the city, across the state. So how do we address that since you're smart at this?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the observation. You know, as you said, first and foremost, I think we have to acknowledge how complicated it is, right? This is not an industry that was designed. This is an industry, and I mean healthcare in general, you know, that kind of grew up over many, many decades. And I came from the UK with a national health system. We don't have a perfect industry. We don't have a perfect healthcare system in this country, but I'll tell you what, it's really good. And I've seen the other side and how complex it is. We just have to make it that much more better. And so what does that mean? Well, one of the things that we've been really trying to do here at Empire is how do we focus on the whole health of the individual? And what is it that really makes us get up every morning? And the thousands of people that work at Empire, and quite frankly, that's a mission. Our mission is to measurably and materially improve the health of every single New Yorker, period. And so that, I think first and foremost, Skye, you have to have a purpose like that to motivate people to come to work and start thinking about the really complex issues that we're facing as a society. Because if you don't have that, then how do you get people motivated? How do you get the flywheel turning? And for us, that was the beginning, you know, probably about 2-3 years ago, of really beginning to face some of the issues and what we can do to make a difference in this market.
And I think that we saw, and it's true, that our government leaders they enter the conversation at some point, right? When you're talking about reaching all the
Of course.
lives of New Yorkers. So how do you in your role communicate with government leaders, and how does politics come into play?
Yeah, politics is a huge part of this, right? Because, at the end of the day, politics is a representation of multiple different opinions, right? So obviously we have Alan Murray's opinion, we have Empire's opinion, we have our partners in the healthcare world, whether it's hospitals or providers, we have employers, we have municipalities and unions, and we have the individual consumers, and all of them have a very strong opinion on healthcare. And so I think one of the most important things that government does is it, in essence, listens to those, regulates it, and finds the fair ground that allows us to move forward. But I think what is really important in that is the ability to listen and find that equal ground for opportunity, right? Over-regulation will completely stifle our ability to solve these problems. Under regulation, one side can get favored. So I think the most important point on all of this, education and getting to the folk that really want to listen to the underlying drivers of some of our healthcare challenges. Like, let's face it, consumer education. We are really good as a health insurance company at communicating in English. But a big chunk of our population either don't have English as a first language or have a completely different cultural methodology for absorbing information. And so a great way for us to partner with government is to understand those different cultures, to understand the different influences on those cultures, and then go out together to form the trusted relationships that allow us to move forward with some of the really important conversations that have to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly seems that way. And maybe it's a forward way of thinking that maybe other leaders don't share, but it seems like that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think it makes a really big difference. And the other thing, Skye, that I think is really important is technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare is not known as a technology forward kind of industry. And yet I think the pandemic showed us that technology really has an incredible place if we can get people to trust it. And obviously with telemedicine, telehealth, behavioral telemedicine, I think we made some big inroads there. Just the beginning though. I've launched a campaign in New York that I think 80% of New York's population should have electronic medical records, electronic information exchange between payers, between hospitals, between providers. So at point of care, that physician knows every single thing about you so they can make the right decision at the right time. And I think most other industries have figured that out. And so I'm trying to push it to your point with politics and politicians. How do we make that a public health priority?
Mm-hmm. How do we?
Well, I think part of it is having the conversations, right? And making people comfortable that the technology, number one, is safe and it's secure. And number two, that there's trust that it will be used for the right thing, right? And what is the right thing? The right thing isn't for denials or, for rating people's individual insurance differently, because you can't do that under the Affordable Care Act, by the way. It is truly for providing that information at the right time. And so I think part of it, Skye, is we have to take a leap, right? We have to take a leap of faith in order to create the trust.
Well, we look forward to that happening if it could be a priority for our leaders this year. I know there's been a lot of change in government, so there's a lot of new minds coming to the table also, and a lot of young people, millennials included, coming into elected office. So hopefully we can make some of those changes moving forward.
That would be great. That would be great.
Alan, do you have any career advice that you would like to share with the audience of anyone looking to get into healthcare, or even, overall from your experience?
Yes, Skye, I've been pretty fortunate in my career paths and had a lot of opportunity to lead an incredible group of people, an incredible group of leaders. And I think a couple of things that really stand out for me is, number one, be really passionate about what you want to do, right? It's really hard to get up in the morning and do something that you don't believe in. And I hope I come across that I believe there is an opportunity for us to make a difference in healthcare. Every day I get up and I think about how we can have an impact on it. And number two, not just believe in it, but have the courage to act on it. Right? Have the courage to go into your employer, to seek education, to talk to people and say, here's what I want to do. Here's how I want to do it. You'll be amazed at how many walls fall down in front of you, how many people you can network with. And quite frankly, it's no longer work. It becomes like a life passion, a life mission. And so it really does make you an inspiration when you can talk and believe in that kind of focus.
Okay, good advice. Thank you. Alan Murray, president of Empire BlueCross BlueShield, the largest health insurer in New York. Thank you for being part of PoliticsNY with Skye on our Healthcare Leaders Power List for Schneps Media.